Hey Rock Canvas, how are you? So I just did a video about vending season and kind of some goals with that. I also showed you a few things that I bought. I'm gonna show you guys a little bit of what I made last year and what I've made last year, and I think it's 2025, 2023, 24, 24, both years. Yeah, and then like kind of go where I'm headed and like new concepts that I'm coming up with. So let me get the stuff. Hold on. Okay, so I'm gonna show you kind of like where I have been in terms of my style. So I think I showed you guys, I did a video of like I had one art style that I was doing, which was more like plants, little squiggly lines and shit like that. And that wasn't the most well received art. Like it was okay, like I sold a few pieces and stuff like that, but it wasn't the most well received art. So when I would try to vend it, it would not work so much. What I realized with that is that it probably would be better for me to apply to exhibitions with that art style as opposed to try and vend it. So if that's the case, then I need to kind of pivot and make that work. Probably like, it probably would be the more larger scale work that I'm trying to do. And so, yeah, like going from that, I don't necessarily have anything right here with me that I can show you. Let me see if I can go downstairs, and hopefully this video, I won't take so long that it stops itself. Hold on, because I want to show you the art. I want to show you what it used to be that I was doing and where I kind of started with this and then where I'm going with it and kind of the materials and all the kind of stuff that I'm interested in. Hold on. I made it back. Okay. So I originally started my art edition journey doing stuff like this, where I first developed a real major style, I guess. And so there's this. So I draw plants like this, and this is my style. I really like it. It's not like the typical standard rose, and I'm really proud of this work. But it wasn't so well received, and I think it's the formatting. What I want to do, I think this would be good for prints. I think this would be good for stickers, like isolating some of them. You know, stickers, I think it's good for textile repeats if I ever wanted to do that. I think it's good for smaller work, hand painted on like canvas type thing. I think that's the way it is. I think some people would probably buy these, but I think also I'm kind of like, I don't want to part with them now. So I want to keep them because they remind me of my old stuff, like who I used to be. The first really entrance into my art of this style, where I really started to like take it seriously. And also I think using acrylic marker didn't help, because I kind of feel like some people think it's just like a random art project that I just like fucking made up in my mind and was just like, girl, whatever. But this is the style that I started with, but knowing where to put this is kind of like helping me. So went there. Eventually it started to get into stuff like that looks like this and this. And so this is 23. How do you see it? And so yeah, like this is the stuff. So yeah, this was the price I was selling things for. I think I sold a few, but it really didn't pop off. I had done some collage style things in the past, and then it was the style that people responded to the most, and so I kept doing it. And it's not that I don't like it, that's not what it is. It's just that I feel like I do have a place for that artwork, and I still want to incorporate that artwork. And so I think actual paintings of it will work. So I started doing collage style, and these aren't really the original collages. They're somewhere downstairs, I think, but they were kind of more like this. not this size, but in that it was collage on the entire project. And so I covered the entire piece with paper. This is the back. I debated on painting the back so they look a little bit better, and I will do that because I want each collection to be painted on the back so that, like, if it becomes a collector's item, well, it is a collector's item. I don't have to be famous for it to be a collector's item, but when people collect it, like, oh, mine is a green bag, mine is a silver bag, mine is a red bag. What does that mean? Oh, it was painted in this year, it was done in this year, this was part of this series that she did. Like, I want to do that, so I'm not going to leave it unfinished because I kind of also feel like people look at the bag and they're like, it's not finished. But it's like, what else can you do with this? Like, you know what I'm saying? I could put cork on there, but I don't necessarily want to put cork. I think you got to cut it, and then if it doesn't look good, it kind of, you know, if it doesn't stick well, because, you know, you already have this stuff. So if it doesn't stick well, then it's like weird. Anyway, this was kind of like the thing. And I actually started larger. I had started doing this style, I know, at least 2018, somewhere. It was like after I graduated college, but before I started being a pharmacy technician, because I started pharmacy technician in like 2019. So somewhere between 2015 and 2019, I made this like larger piece. And then the ones that I did an exhibition for, that got selected for an exhibition, were smaller than those. The originals were like 14 by like 12 or something like that. The pieces that I submitted, the largest was like 7 by 9 or something, 8 by 10, somewhere in there. And then I started working like smaller, and so this is where you get these sizes. And then ultimately I got down way to this size, which I actually really like because I feel like it's the most affordable option, and I'm very forced to consider space on it. And it helps me develop my eye. I like developing my eye for art, right? So this is like an earlier work, this is another work. Then eventually I started to get to the point where I'm still doing this, but you start seeing the white space, right? You start seeing white space. You start seeing a lot of white space because I'm not 100% covering it anymore. It was a pain in the it was a pain in the ass to kind of start wrapping it around, especially if pieces that are short, like this black piece on the back, you know, and then other pieces, and trying to keep it together so it doesn't, you know, come apart. Yeah, but then the concept started to shift into something like this, and then I could really start playing with color and space and stuff like that, instead of considering just like the overall composition when it's fully wrapped. Now I can consider that, but we're having white space. So I started doing stuff like this and stuff like this, which really like this or this, and you can start playing around with how it actually is supposed to be placed. I mean, these you can do that as well, right? Like I have a larger piece. Like you can definitely play around with where you want it to be. You can play around with it. That's not, you know, that's not anything bad. But yeah, I started to play around with stuff. So eventually it got to where there was more and more white space. More and more white space, and playing, mixing, matching a lot of things, going smaller, having a, a singular piece, and I started doing that a lot more. Then I worked bigger, started having pieces like this as well, pieces like this, right? I worked a little bit larger and got a piece like this, boom, cool. Then I ended up deviating, so I was still doing pieces like this, stuff like this, you know, blah blah blah. And then eventually I started to do, where did I have it? This. Pieces like this, and this is almost like geographic, like a map type thing. So I cut these out because this is a part of a larger paper that I have, but it's a bunch of circles, and you can cut this out, and then I would cut a piece or rip a piece of the paper and then put it on here, and that was another collection that started, another deviation. And so I started vending these things, and some of the suggestions were cool. I realized that magnets would be a thing. I don't think I have any more magnets really. I think I sold everything. Yeah, I think I sold all my magnets for real. But they would be like this size. Did I? I don't know if I did. I don't think I did. Maybe, I think there may be some downstairs. They're just not in here. But the magnets sold actually a lot quicker because I think people, they like art that is accessible in that way. Like, you know, anybody can kind of hang art on their wall and shit like that. But, you know, I think I grew up as a kid. You know, putting stuff on the fridge, like magnets on the fridge, right? Putting your letters to learn how to spell and make words and all that kind of stuff. And I think that the refrigerator and the kitchen usually is overwhelmed with a lot of like large furniture and like textiles and stuff like that to make it beautiful. But what about like a fucking like magnet on your refrigerator, you know? What about it? So I ended up doing that. Then one person, they gave me the idea of making brooches, which I'm going to explore, but I need to figure out how to do that because I want the prototypes to look good, but I need to kind of figure it out. I don't want necessarily like just my paper mache with like the pin back, because if you wear it out and it gets wet, then that's like a thing, right? So thinking about those things is important. The last things that I've been drifting into a little bit has been eventually getting onto canvas with these old styles and getting onto canvas with these new styles. Yeah, particularly for canvas, I want to use raw canvas, gesso it, paint it, and not put it on a frame. Like, I kind of want it to be rough, so it's kind of like a tapestry. That's kind of where I'm going. I don't want it necessarily to be a frame, because I kind of also feel like not framed, but canvases can be very unapproachable, I think. I feel like if you get raw canvas that's just rolled, it's much more accessible and a lot easier probably to deal with in terms of like putting it somewhere and putting it up. Because with canvases, you got to make sure it's level. The person who puts the frame together, like, you know, punches and stuff like that, got to make sure that when they put the wire, so that it can see up that that's level. Putting it on hooks and stuff like that in your house is a pain in the ass if you don't have hooks already up to put your artwork on. And so I think raw canvas helps. And also I feel like raw canvas would make sense if you want to work really, really large, because you really can like use some clips. You can literally like use some clips and like put that joint, hang that joint up somewhere. Like, it doesn't have to be so complicated, I feel like, for like unframed canvas. There we go. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm going. So working larger, I want to work larger these days. So yeah. And then lastly, lastly, I am going to start using the fabrics that I bought, like all 30,000 of them. So I am starting to get into fabric. So what I want to do is transfer the ideas to fabric. So the same way I have a collage of paper, I want to have a collage of fabric. And that's not new, that's not revolutionary, but it's my style. And so I'm just pushing the bounds of what my style looks like, the medium. I'm pushing the bounds of the medium, right? So I go to Savers and anywhere, Goodwill, blah, blah, blah. And I get, don't do this to me now that y'all know what I do. But I go to the section that has a lot of the linens, and I get the napkins. I get the handkerchiefs, I get the napkins, And I'm gonna wash these, iron them out, and start sewing my collages onto these. And this is a way of selling something that's versatile, because I think also people would like to have art in unconventional ways. Like, you may not even want to use the, right, you know what I'm saying? If I get this and I say it's, because I'm into upcycling as well, but if I get a set of 5 or, well, 6, 4, 2, something like that, and I sell them as a set, I think people would be interested in keeping them. They may not be interested in using them every day or using them as part of their like actual tableware and stuff like that, right? They may consider it a little bit precious, but they may, you know, like that art. And also, it's, again, with the tapestry type deal, people may actually want it. So getting those, these are really stiff ones, so these are more canvasy, like, I think, to me. But yeah, like just using these and doing that collage style. And then if I want to make like a large mosaic of things, sewing them together, even stuff like this, like having a different kind of background challenges me to think about which colors and patterns I want to go with this. And then with these ideas, getting more into exhibition styles. So submitting for exhibitions, doing things, putting stuff together, and using my sewing skills that I need to fucking use. Because over the summer last year, I learned how to make clothes, and I never touched anything again after that. And so I need to like learn how to sew, like, again, use my sewing skills again. So yeah, I got these, which honestly I don't know, because I don't want to do anything to the fabric for real in terms of like the actual design. So what I'm thinking about is just making the central square the art, the central square of the art. Another thing I want to use in terms of fabric is denim, using that as a canvas, using denim as a canvas with fabric paint, and then priming it with that fabric paint, and then gessoing it, and then making that, and that's a canvas. I have these. I like these, and I don't think I'm going to sell them. And I don't think I'm going to alter them either. I just kind of got them from my house. But this is how as crazy as you can go. Because, like, you can, like, if you want to, what you can do, you can cut out, oh, sorry, wrong side. You can cut out the circle, fill it in with your own art. Cut out the small square, fill that whole thing with your own art. You can start putting stuff over it, applique, rhinestones, whatever. You can cut out this you know, this main part and fill it in with something else. You can start making, like I said, you make larger pieces of work by sewing it together. These are all ideas that I've had, and this year I guess I'm gonna start doing it because I did some other stuff. I was doing some videos about trying to find some drawers, and it seemed like the stuff that's being successful is me in this art and this tarot reading and this writing that I be doing. It seemed like that's more successful than me just trying to find a job at CVS as a pharmacy technician, because I was one for 4 years, and I was like, why can't I find anything? Why, when I apply, like, I can't get anything anymore? And I'm like, oh my God. But I guess it's redirecting me to build my own ish. So yeah, that's me building my own ish. This is what I'm doing. So thanks for watching. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.